You're listening to the Unwritable Rant podcast with your host and bourbon-soaked storyteller, Juliette Miranda.
Hey there, y'all. It's Juliette Miranda. Welcome to episode 235 of the Unwritable Rant podcast. I have a bourbon-soaked story for you about eating my own heart and a homecoming intervention. But first, I want to tell you about Sacred Hollow. Sacred Hollow is a box service that crafts beautifully unique boxes for modern witches. Every item is carefully selected for each box, and no two boxes are the same. Each item placed in your box is cleansed with smoke and sound, ensuring your box is free of any lingering energies. You were born with magic. Let Sacred Hollow be a part of your magical journey. Visit sacredhollowbox.com for more information on individual and subscription box services, as well as magical items for your everyday practice. You know what I do every day, y'all? In addition to drinking bourbon, every day I walk down Royal Street. This is my favorite street in the French Quarter. It really is. It is beautiful. It's definitely a nicer street than Bourbon, and it is far quieter than Decatur, and it's just, as far as I'm concerned, perfect. It's full of art galleries and tiny shops, and it can take me pretty much anywhere I need to go, whether it's my hair salon or the market. And in walking it every day, I've really gotten to know the routine of the area. It's kind of cool. I know that, say, at 11 a.m., I can expect to find tables being moved to the sidewalk outside my favorite bar. And I know that at 2 p.m., the owner of a corner gallery will be out on the street with his guitar, playing for everyone, but mostly just himself. And I know that by 7 o'clock, there is a modern-day Sam Cooke who will be out there singing the one and only verse he knows of Don't Know Much About History for the next 5 hours. But all day and every day, there is one thing I know that I can count on without a doubt. And that is that there is a certain dude who will try to scam me into taking a soap sample. It does not matter that I have declined his shitty soap sample at least 100 times in a row. He just continues to offer it. And when I refuse, his follow-up is always the same. He tries to reassure me by explaining, "But it's not food." Yeah, I'm not a fucking moron, dude. I know this. And I also know this is not about soap. This is about him trying to lure me into the store and sucking me into $2,000 worth of shitty off-brand cosmetic purchases, where the main ingredients are things like protein and plant extracts. No, thank you. Here's the thing, though. I try to be polite every time I go through this song and dance number with him, because I know that really he's just trying to do his job. But every so often, I kind of have to fight the urge to send that fucker's soap flying. And this is because his delusional confidence reminds me of someone that I once knew. And that is a guy that I will call Gordy. Gordy was, I guess he was the Ducky to my Molly Ringwald. A blonde, slightly vacant-looking boy who carried his lunch money in a dented Altoid tin and wore a scuzzy denim jacket every day, even to gym. Both were protective gear that he had cultivated to manage the high school bully system. The jacket looked tough and smelled bad, while the tin, when placed just so in his pocket, could pass for a pack of cigarettes. It was enough to make him a mostly ignored outcast, and for those times when he got on the wrong person's radar, he had one more accessory to keep him from being stuffed in a locker. And that was me. I met Gordy in freshman English class when we were paired up to work on a paper about Shakespeare. One morning, as we were working in the library, two girls made a snide comment about that jacket. It was meant to be heard by both him and me. Oof, that was a tough one because there were two ways that I could handle it. The first, and clearly more popular choice, would be to agree with the girls, and then pile on until we'd reduced Gordy to nothing more than a pile of tears and self-loathing. Instead, I told them to go fuck themselves, Telling anyone to fuck off has never been a problem for me. This is not a noble quality. It is 100% selfish. I didn't give a shit about Gordy's jacket, but I did care how those girls saw me. Any show of weakness, and I would easily be their next target. My words were short but effective. They quickly retreated, and Gordy quickly latched on. It was an arrangement of convenience, really. He got the social protection of a person to sit with during lunch and in class, and I got his complete devotion. It was not something that I expected or that I asked for, and I got to admit, I wasn't always nice about it. I didn't know any better. All I knew was that I had some half-drippy guy following me around, offering to carry my books and bringing me little presents like extra loose-leaf paper and bars of chocolate. It was both flattering and annoying. Over time, Gordy and I became more like friends. I mean, at least in that I put an end to his gift-giving and started talking to him like an actual human being. And that was pretty much the extent of our loose companionship until senior year. Something shifted in Gordy that summer. I don't know. Maybe he'd watched too many teen movies. Maybe his balls dropped. It could have been anything. But he went into senior year with updated confidence and unfounded expectations. Part of me wanted to cheer the guy on, because although he was still wearing that ridiculous jean jacket, he'd at least rolled up the sleeves. The cash tin had been replaced with an actual wallet, and his usual low hum of conversation picked up a stronger cadence. The only problem was that this newfound swagger came with a side of dick. Where before Gordy was hesitant to even sit too close to me, now he couldn't keep his hands to himself. He was constantly pawing at my shoulders in a creepy attempt at a back rub, and I nearly broke the guy's fingers when he tried to slide his hand into the back pocket of my jeans. He'd always ask, "What's the problem? I'm just being friendly," never really understanding that friends do not get touching privileges. Invitations to movies and dinner soon followed, along with a desperate appeal to go to homecoming together. It's always just a little heartbreaking the first time you say no to a guy like Gordy. Because he was trying, admittedly badly, but still. And maybe if I wasn't so caught up in my own budding world of rock and roll, I might have been in a better place to say yes. It's not like Gordy wasn't fully aware of my circumstances, though. He'd heard enough about my assorted boyfriends and boyfriend-like guys to know full well that his chances weren't very good. But I have said this before, and I maintain it. I never fault a person for the asking. It's the response that I judge. Gordy did not respond well. When I said, "I'm sorry, I'm seeing someone," he snarled. The guy actually snarled, and he said, "What, that older jerk? Dump him and go to homecoming with me." I wasn't even sure I wanted to go to homecoming at all, let alone with my own boyfriend. My school spirit was wrapped up in the cheerleader uniform I had never received. You see, there had been a time when I tried to fit in, when I'd wanted to be popular and failed miserably in the attempt. Rather than cover it up in an ugly jacket, I'd spent the last 3 years showing off my so-called unpopular traits outside of school, in the music scene. And since I'd found my own crowd, I didn't see the point in spending a night socializing with people who had completely written me off. My boyfriend, whom I'll call Stitch, he encouraged me to go to homecoming. He wasn't buying my argument that the night would suck. Because of course it's gonna suck, he said. But it's the kind of suckage that you will one day regret having missed. Right there, y'all. That is what I like to call musician logic. In a weird way, though, it made sense. My bitterness towards my classmates didn't have to be eternal. And I admit, It'd be kind of fun to show off how I'd changed. But it left a big question. If I do go to homecoming, who do I go with? Stitch shocked the hell out of me by offering to be my date. I had just assumed he'd rather stay home, seeing as how he not only didn't go to my school, but was, in fact, 7 years out of high school. Yes, y'all, I was 17 and dating a 24-year-old guy. And before you get all cringy and judgy, hear me out. Like I said, Stitch was a musician, one who worked at the same garage where my dad took his car. We started seeing each other over the summer, and although it wasn't especially serious, I liked him. And my folks did their best to vet him out. After a few family barbecues and game nights, my parents were cool with letting me go to gigs and concerts and really wherever else I wanted to go with Stitch. But the second I mentioned potentially going to homecoming with him, they were less supportive. Which made no sense. If Stitch was a decent enough guy for me to follow alone into the city, then why wasn't he good enough to take me to a chaperoned school dance? My parents didn't have an answer for that. They just tried to convince me that I would have more fun going with someone from school, like Gordy. Even my few friends thought that Gordy was the better date. They all pointed out how much he liked me and how weird it would be if I showed up with an older guy. So for a minute, I considered it. Gordy clearly wanted to go and had maintained a steady stream of invitations for the past 2 weeks. But I wasn't comfortable with how unrelenting he'd become. It seemed like the more I said no, the harder he pushed for yes. And unlike Stitch, when Gordy told me I'd regret my decision, it sounded like a threat. So, you know what? Fuck all of y'all. I should be able to go to homecoming with whomever I want. And damn it, I wanted to go with Stitch. He was so thrilled when I told him. And bless his heart, to meet the dress code, the guy even borrowed a suit jacket and tie from his brother, who sadly was 2 inches shorter and about 10 pounds lighter. Stitch paired this ill-fitting combo with his black stage pants and snakeskin boots, and the effect was part rock star, part ringleader. Even my mother, who was gracious to pretty much everybody I dated, even she had trouble concealing her giggles when he appeared on the doorstep in that getup. He'd also brought me a wrist corsage. An alarming assortment of flowers that had the shape and weight of a gaudy bowling ball. It immediately made my skin crawl. But he looked so proud sliding it on me, I didn't have the heart to take it off. After assuring my parents that he would have me home by midnight, Stitch turns to escort me out. And that is when we all notice he'd driven the band van. I don't know if y'all are familiar with band vans, but they are a sight. And maybe once, sometime in the 70s, this particular band van may have been cool. Time and musicians, however, had not been kind to it, and the thing had devolved into something of a grumbly, dented milk carton on wheels. Any other time, I would have had no problem hopping in. But not so much that night, and I mean that quite literally, because the black lacy sheath dress that I had chosen to wear was so ridiculously tight I couldn't raise my leg high enough to take the first step in. I spend a minute or two trying to hop up myself, and I am mortified when Stitch has to literally hoist me into the van like gear. My parents are cringing on the doorstep, holding their breath as I am forced to slither into the oversized van seat. This is not exactly the homecoming experience any of us had envisioned. But I wave anyway as Stitch backs out of the driveway, only once wondering if maybe this was a mistake. The same fear hits me again when we get to school and find a line of limos waiting to drop kids off in front. You can see the tinted windows being opened one by one to watch as Stitch's van sputters into the parking lot, just coughing up plumes of smoke as the engine backfires. Once again, he has to airlift me out of my seat. And I will tell you, I am conscious of everything as we walk into the gym. My stupid, strapless bra just pooling around my non-existent boobs. The flower bomb that is rapidly threatening to take over my arm. And the fact that I am the only chick there whose date had voted in an election. Twice. I had wanted this night to be a glorious smack in the face to all of my shitty classmates. Unfortunately, for as easy as it seems to deliver a fuck you, seeing it through is something else entirely. Especially when I saw Gordy standing on the other side of the gym. He was everything my date was not. Young, well-dressed, completely at ease. Gordy cleaned up good, y'all, and if there ever was a moment for me to eat my heart out, that would be it. Stitch, meanwhile, is so fidgety that he has managed to get his fingers stuck in the lace on the back of my dress. I'm trying to pry them out without tearing anything when Gordy approaches. He smiles at me, completely dismissing Stitch with barely a nod, and he asks if I want to dance. Any misgivings I had about him completely dissolve in the face of his confidence. I want very badly to dance with Gordy. So I turn to Stitch, who just smiles and says, "Go ahead, have fun." Gordy takes my arm and leads me to the center of the dance floor. I cannot for the life of me remember what song was playing. All I remember is that Gordy could dance. And not the typical high school bump and grind. Gordy danced like a man. I probably should have walked away after the first song ended. I definitely should have walked away after the second song, especially when I saw Stitch standing off to the side looking less like my date and more like one of the faculty. But no, I went in for a third song, a slow song. As Gordy busts out the best of his grade school cotillion lessons, he leans in and says how much he has looked forward to having this moment with me. I have to admit to him that I'm enjoying it too, and he pulls me just a little bit closer. He smells soapy and clean, which is a nice change from the hot stench of Drakkar Noir. And as I look up at him, he touches my chin, leans in, and kisses me. For a second, it's really nice. It's a good kiss, but I know damn well it is not okay. And I pull away, praying to God that Stitch wasn't looking. Gordy tightens his grip on me and he says, "Forget that guy. I've got a limo. Let me take you out tonight." It was tempting. It was really fucking tempting and easy. Gordy was right then the stuff that school dances are made of. The stuff that I thought that I wanted. But he was not my date. I shake my head and I say, "Gordy, I'm sorry. I can't." I start to step away from him, but Gordy grips both of my shoulders. And he says, "I've followed you around for 3 fucking years, and this is what I get?" His eyes are wide with anger, and I try to quiet him and apologize, suggesting that maybe tomorrow we could talk. Gordy is not having it. I mean, not at all. He is fucking angry. And you know, I understood. I still understand. I mean, in a way, we went into this with the same goals. And I was just as confused as he was about attraction and friendship and where to draw a line. I knew I crossed it by kissing Gordy. But the thing is, he went way past it when he wouldn't let me go. Again, he presses my face into me, now forcing his lips against mine and shoving his tongue against my teeth. His frustration makes it impossible for me to break his grip, and now I'm starting to get scared. Fortunately, 2 hands intervene. It's Stitch. He rips Gordy away from me and tells him it's time to back off. Gordy laughs and he says, "Who the fuck are you to tell me what to do? Look at you. You look like a freak in that dime store jacket." I reach to take Stitch's hand and leave, but Gordy isn't done. He calls me a bitch and he says, "Fine, walk away from me. Go have fun with your pedophile boyfriend." The song ends just as his words hit the air, and the room deadens with the weight of what he has just said. The dancing stops, conversation drops, and for way too long, Stitch and I are forced to confront dozens of eyes that are just full of disgust. I wish I could say that I called Gordy out. Maybe called everybody out, and said something about how even the best fucking jacket on the planet can only conceal an asshole for so long. In the moment, though, I deliver the only statement I can think to make. Fuck you. I hold tight to Stitch and wait for someone to say something else to us. But the only voice to follow comes from school security. They grab me and they grab Stitch and they escort us out of the gym. Gordy, that little prick, was free to continue his night at the dance. Stitch and I walk through the parking lot. The music is kicked back in and the unfortunate thump of Sir Mix-a-Lot accompanies us to the van. This time, I'm the twitchy one, wishing violently there was some way I could explain myself to Stitch. Maybe somehow reassure him. Stitch looks thoughtful and stops just before we get to the van. He brings my hand to his lips and kisses it, saying, "You don't have to apologize." He says he knew this was probably a bad idea, but had hoped that he could be the one to give me the homecoming I wanted. Then he says, "I'm just sorry we never got the chance to dance together." The truth was, I didn't know what the fuck I wanted. No teenager does. That's why there are so many movies about them fucking shit up. What I did know was that I did not want to leave things with Stitch like this, because he deserved better than that. We were supposed to go out to dinner after the dance, to some fancy Italian restaurant with linen napkins and goblets of wine. But this was not a linen napkin and goblet moment. Instead, I insisted Stitch hoist me into the driver's seat, and I pointed that van right toward our favorite rock club. After a very large and very greasy pizza, Stitch and I got our dance. Not to Paula Abdul or Simply Red, or to any of the other crappy songs the DJ was likely spinning back at the gym, but to Guns N' Roses. It may not have been the homecoming I thought I wanted, but it was the best homecoming I could have asked for. Cheers, y'all. So in case y'all were missing my bourbon reviews, I still do them on my YouTube channel. Now, if you want to hear more about the bourbon that I've been drinking lately, head on over to youtube.com/Juliette Miranda. I host a show called Bourbon-Soaked Live every Monday night at 7 p.m. Central, and it is there where I talk about the bourbon that I'm drinking and hang out with a whole bunch of cool people in the chat. You can also find all sorts of videos about the crazy adventures my guy and I have while we travel. So I hope I will see you there in the chat one day. Don't forget, you can also check out theunwritablерant.com to find all of the back episodes of this podcast. So thanks so much for listening, y'all. I will be back next Sunday with more bourbon-soaked stories. Cheers.
Go to theunwritablерant.com and sign up to get early access to interviews and new videos. And don't forget to connect with Juliette on Twitter @MorningNeurosis.
Girl, you was pretty as a Sunday morning, standing on the corner at Carondelet. What you say we make our way up to Bourbon, couple hurricanes and a hand grenade, and get blown away. Let the chips fall where they may. If it's all the same, what you say, bon ton, hey, pretty mama, I can smell the gumbo. Sweetest taste of honeysuckle on my lips. Good God Almighty, I can hear the trombone. Every heart ought to beat to a rhythm like this. Come a little closer, honey, let me hold you. Nothing tastes better than a bourbon kiss. You